Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Mind, Money, Soul. And today I'm going to be talking about how to stop letting your money go and the 3 top tips for holding on to more money. My question to you is, are you sick of feeling like your money is constantly slipping through your fingers? Slipping through your fingers all the time. Great song. Do you just feel like your money is disappearing quicker than you can even do anything with it? Like before you've even thought about saving or investing, you're like, my money's gone. My money's gone. And this might be both in business and also in your personal life. So if that's the case, I'm going to give you my free tap tips. Now, what I will say is this is going to look different for everybody. This might be something new that you're experiencing, and it might be partly because the economy and inflation and things are more expensive, or it might be something that you have experienced loads over the last however long. I definitely feel like when I was younger and I had a full-time job and I was, even when I wasn't living at home and I was living in London, I found managing my money a bit easier. Since living in London, being a single girly, things getting more expensive, being a full-time business owner, it's definitely got harder to manage my money. Just going to be completely honest with you all. But you shift and you change as things change for you. And it's about not getting too caught up as it happens and being able to recognize what's going on. So the first tip of being able to hold on to more money is you have to track your spending. There is no way around this. You cannot ignore the numbers and what is going on. If you want to lose weight, you track your calories, right? You got to know what you're putting in your body. If you want to hit a sales target at work, you have to track your sales. This is the same with your money. If you want to grow your money and be able to hold on to more of it, you have to track your spending. You have to know, where am I spending? Where is my money going? What are my expenses? Am I sticking in alignment? Am I in alignment with my budget and what I said my spending plan was going to be? It's all well and good creating a plan for yourself for the future. But if you don't track, how do you know if you're still on that plan? How do you know that you still are on track? Lol. It's kind of do you remember that show Secret Eaters? I mean, that show is so fucking problematic for so many reasons, because why are we calling people out like that on telly? But whatever. But something that happened a lot was that they didn't realise just how many calories they were consuming. They thought they were being really good. And then they were like, oh my God, when I actually add up what I am eating throughout the day, this here, that there, I realised that I'm eating 3 times the amount of calories that I actually should be eating. And it's habitual, and they're not really taking into account that part. That's kind of what happens with your spending. There are so many ways in which you're like, oh yeah, I spend on groceries and I spend on travel and I spend here and I spend this, and you feel like you kind of have a track of everything that's going on. And then sometimes there are those pesky little purchases that you make, or the bigger ones that you're like, oh my God, I didn't even realise that that's how much that was adding up to, or I didn't even realise I was spending that money. So it's really important, because tracking your money doesn't mean that you are going to have to be frugal or tight or restrictive. It's just important to know what is going on. So tip number 1 is you have to track your spending. There is no way around it. Now, if you're I would like to live a life whereby I don't have to track my spending, you probably could get to that point, but you would probably have somebody else managing your finances. You would pay, I don't even know who you would pay to do that. Actually, I don't know who you'd pay to do that, but you probably could hire a VA or somebody to be I've sorted out your finances for you, this is how much you can spend, and you have somebody else tracking it for you. But the thing is we have so much technology nowadays that can do it for us. That's a win. A win is a win. So number 1 is track your spending, honeys. Okay, number 2 is about changing your identity. Now, if you view yourself as a spender, let me tell you, you are going to spend more. You are going to make up excuses to spend that money. And your behaviours will align with how you think of yourself. That's just how it works. Now, as humans, we are very committed and consistent with the stories that we tell ourselves. Okay? Now, even if those stories are hurting us, even if those thoughts and patterns and beliefs about ourselves aren't helpful, we are more likely to stick in alignment with it. So instead of just trying to change your behavior, you want to go to the root and you want to change how you view yourself. And there is this book that I'm reading at the moment called Influence and he talks about the brain, why people say yes to things, and a big part of it is commitment and consistency to how we view how we view ourselves and to how other people view us. Now, when we act in alignment with our behaviors, when we are acting in alignment with our identity and our behaviors align with that, what we need to acknowledge is that we actually have more control over that than we realize. It's changing your identity is something that everybody is capable of. If you are listening to this and you're like, no, I've always been I've always been a spender, I've always been shit with money, I've always been broke. I'm telling you now, that phrase in itself is a story that you're telling yourself to remain in alignment with your identity. Your brain is lying to you. Like, we are all capable of change. We are capable of growth and change in so many ways. It's actually even hard to comprehend. We won't go down that rabbit hole right now because we'll be here all afternoon. But it's really important to acknowledge the power that you have inside of yourself. Now, I wanted to just basically, like, talking of identity in that book, they basically did this survey or this piece of research where they went around this, like, town in America and they asked a bunch of people, like, would you help the city or the town be kept beautiful? Like, you know, like, to do with, like, making sure people don't litter, looking after the city, and all of these people in this town were like, oh my God, absolutely. And they all put up like a little sign in their garden, that was given to them by this company, which basically like, you know, keep this town beautiful or whatever. Now, what happened like a couple of weeks later is they all got a call from the same company, another survey, like sort of breakdown type thing. And they were asked, would you have another sign in your garden, which basically, because you're on a road, the sign would basically say drive carefully. Now, this sign was freaking massive and it was going to take up a huge part of their garden, but they got a really high percentage of people saying yes from the ones that had already agreed to have the keep this town beautiful. Now, keeping the town beautiful and getting people to drive safely are two very different things, but probably what happened is they saw themselves as a good citizen and therefore they aligned their behaviour with feeling like they were a good citizen. Now, the interesting thing about this is they also did another survey where they were trying to reduce the energy that people used within a town. And so they sort of like called up and they were like, hey, we're trying to get people to use less energy. Would you be down for that? Like, if you do, we'll get your name published in the newspaper. Loads of people said yes. When they then checked, like a month later, the household's energy usage, it had dropped. So like they managed to drop it down by like, I don't know, like 10, 15%. That was great. And then they turned around to everybody and said, so sorry, we're not going to be able to put you in the newspaper anymore. Like, sorry about that. And the study ended. Now, what was really interesting is after that happened, you'd think that those people would go back to using the normal amount of energy, right? Like, because it was habitual. But actually, the opposite happened. And when they went and checked their energy levels, like another month later, the energy levels had been reduced even more than the original, lower part point that they'd had. And that was because they believed that on a psychological level, because people had viewed themselves as like, I'm a good citizen, I'm a good member of this earth, I'm helping the planet, then because they then didn't have the carrot of like, oh, you're going to get put in the newspaper, and they were upholding themselves against their own standards and values, they actually acted more in alignment with it. It was like they had the autonomy to be good with their energy, and therefore they did that. So this thing about being consistent with how we view ourselves is so freaking strong that it's all happening subconsciously. So essentially what you want to do is learn to change your identity and how you view yourself. And that's going to come down to different tools around visualization, mantras and the stories that you tell yourself, journaling and being aware of how you speak about yourself, and feeding yourself with good information so that you see yourself differently. And then slowly, smaller decisions will align with that behaviour and it will sort of snowball into a bigger compound effect. Now, this brings us on to the third point, which is about building trust. You need to build trust with yourself and with your money. Now, within yourself, you need to know that you are capable of knowing what to do and how to handle your money. if you have always been shit with money, or you felt you've always been shit with money, your brain and your body will not trust that you know what to do with your money, and it will get rid of it as quickly as possible. This could be one of the reasons why your money just disappears. Your brain doesn't think you're capable of holding on to and managing and growing your money. So the quickest and safest thing to do to get you back to that normal sort of, I guess, familiar feeling of having no money, it will get rid of it and it will spend it as quickly as possible. And it will blame things externally of it, but it's like this weird self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, you also have to believe that money will be around. You have to have an abundance mindset. Now, just because you get it now, it does not mean that you need to spend it now. So just because you have money sat there in your bank account, it does not mean that you need to go and spend it. Now, I had a client whose parents were so bad with money, and they basically built a belief that money was hard to hold on to and it didn't come around very often, and therefore like they would just spend it as quickly as they got it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enjoy it. They honestly believe, like, if I don't spend this now, I'm not going to get to enjoy it because it's going to go and I'm never going to get any more. But then what happened was more money always came. It always does. Whether it comes in truckloads or whether it comes in a little bit, more money always comes. But the problem is they fell into this habit of always spending it because they were scared that more wasn't going to come. So it's reminding yourself that it is safe to hold on to money and it is safe to grow your money. You do not have to spend every single penny you get. If you hold on to that money and if you grow that money, you're going to be able to enjoy it in a way more than if you just spend it on the spot. Now, as we know, spending it in the moment and is just as important as like saving and investing. They all have their place. But if you're always only spending, you are going to be living paycheck to paycheck and you're never really going to enjoy the purchases that you do make because it's always going to be laced with anxiety of like, I shouldn't be spending this money, or what if more money doesn't come? So you want to learn to strengthen and build an abundance mindset and trust yourself that you are capable of growing and managing your money. And the only way that you're going to do that is by doing that hard part, the first part, and breaking through that wall of like doing the things you need to do to make sure that your money is being managed well and doing those small actions. So starting off with like having a money day and just like showing yourself that you're committed to being good with your finances, a daily bank balance check, or, opening a new bank account that tracks your money, whatever it is, those little actions are a vote towards the version of you that is good with money. And you have to remember all of them. You have to be aware of all of them because we have a really bad habit of when we do good things or right things, we seem to forget. We seem to ignore them. We seem to pretend they didn't happen. But anytime a bad thing happens, we're like, oh my God, I'm the worst person in the world. So you need to make sure that you are basically keeping a note of all those little small actions and habits because that's what's going to build up a good identity and behaviour over time. So to recap, 1, you got to track your spending. 2, you need to change your identity and start to see yourself as somebody who can save and hold on to money. And 3, you need to build trust and strengthen your abundant mindset. And those are 3 things that are going to really help you learn how to hold on to and grow your money. So hopefully you found this episode useful. Please do share it with anybody you feel needs it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, slide into my DMs, drop me an email, and I will speak to you next week. Mwah.